here at the Afterlife Symposium. And wouldn't you know that there are many people who have books on the afterlife, but we're sitting here talking to Sandra Champlain, We Don't Die, and we're here just to learn a little bit about her story.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I'm a sponsor here, and it was just a year ago that I found out about the Afterlife Symposium, and I really invited myself, and they said, well, who are you? Why, what's your story? And basically 5 years ago, I wrote this book, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. I was someone who 20 years ago never believed in the afterlife, would make fun of people who believed in spirituality and talked the lingo.
Was that because of the religious dogma that you thought it was connected to?
I don't know. My parents just always taught us that those kind of things don't ever buy into. And I think as a child, we believe what our parents tell us.
I do.
Fast forward, in 1996, I developed a huge fear of dying. And I couldn't go to bed at night without thinking, what happens next? And so...
do you know what brought the fear on?
My mother suspects it's because I worked in nursing homes. I volunteered a lot. I became a chef, but the background was in nursing homes, and there was a lot of death around me. And my father had been diagnosed with cancer when I was 14. He did go into remission, but my grandfather passed away. So she believes somewhere deep in my subconscious was this.
Yes.
So on my journey,
Could have been from past lives too.
It could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah,
But well, I actually think it's perfect, because without that, I wouldn't be where I am. So very secretly, I started this journey. Is there any proof of the afterlife? So I studied all the whole gamut, near-death experiences, reincarnation. I took a class in mediumship. And
not at Arthur Findlay.
Not at Arthur Findlay. Oh, I've been to Arthur Findlay though since. But in that mediumship reading, I actually thought I was making up somebody. But she just told us to pretend that we were mediums, just because we weren't really doing it at that moment. But this would be how it was once we got the training.
Which mediumship school was
it? Was Doreen Virtue back
lovely.
2002. So I took a partner and I told her, making up, that her grandfather was behind her on her mom's side. His name was Jan. He was a fisherman in Denmark. He had a big gap between his teeth. He died of lung cancer, and he wanted her to give the message to her mother that he loved her. He was a real tough father, never hugged her, never said, I love you. And I did this with my eyes closed.
Is this evidential mediumship?
It was,
Yeah,
but I didn't believe in anything at that time, but she promised if you took that course, you were a medium, and I thought, there's no freaking way. But the bottom line is, when I opened my eyes and the woman's crying, her grandfather's name was Jan, he was a fisherman in Denmark. Anyways, that opened the door. So I continued to do, you name it, EVP things, I studied science and all these things. And I got this great information, and then I thought I really should do something with it, but who am I? I'm nobody. Who's going to believe me? And then my own ego said, I used to badmouth people that believed in this. I don't want to lose any friends. Maybe someday I'll tell people, but not now. And then
what were you doing for work?
I am a chef by trade, so my mother and I own a catering business.
Everyone knows how much we love foodies on this channel.
We own a catering business, and we cater to race car teams. So we travel the country, we set up a big tent, we cook from anywhere from 500 to 1,500 people per meal for the IMSA series of racing.
Where do you live?
Massachusetts, just north of Boston.
Okay.
But 2010, my dad gets diagnosed with cancer, and in a matter of months, he passes away. And in that time, the grief that was felt, I hit an all-time low. I wasn't considering suicide, but I could understand how people could do that. And so something inside me told me to study the grieving process, and why does it have to hurt so bad? And during that time, there was a lot of family feuds with my siblings, and I thought, how did normal people become such crazies? I discovered in my depressed state, I actually feel like I hit the jackpot, and I found how our brain changes in the grieving process. Our actual levels of different neurotransmitters get depleted through research.
Okay.
So, you hear the stages of grieving and things like that. I went so much further, and I actually found out that our perception changes. So you and I could be sisters looking at the same thing, but we're seeing different things, and that caused a lot of the fighting. I found the reason for the pain. I found things to help lift the levels of serotonin to make us feel better, help us through the grieving process. So just being a good citizen that these things help me, I decided to create a free audio called How to Survive Grief, which still exists. It's survivegrief.com, free.
This was in the 90s?
This was in the early 2000s, or 2010.
Yeah.
And I posted it on the internet, on Facebook. In the days I only had a few friends on Facebook, but it ended up going viral. And within just a couple months, over 3,000 people had heard it. And what I didn't expect is people wrote, and they said not only did it help them ease the pain, but I chose not to kill myself. And I got enough of those emails that I thought, I have a moral responsibility to get these words out.
Absolutely.
So it hit me, and I always knew if I had a book, it'd be called We Don't Die, because it's in your face, like, people are like, what do you mean we don't die? But the subtitle is A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. So as, going to conferences, I need a publisher. And I pitched my story I've never written before in my life. And he says, just write your best things like you're talking to me. So I did. And he said, how soon can you have the whole book written? I wrote my book in 2 months. It was published 2 months later.
Wow.
It hit #1 on Amazon just a couple months after that. I got to be a guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, and the rest is history. But I talk about my journey of why I believe in the afterlife. That grief audio I was telling you about has become chapter 10. Because people, like it or not, everybody's going to lose a loved one. I want to train people in grief. And the rest of the book is, if I don't die, who am I and what is my life for? And to empower people to live life fully. Well, after I'd written that, I did all kinds of interviews. But there was a piece of me that was missing. And that was the piece of me that loved to learn more and find out more and who's doing what. And so I had a friend who wanted to create a podcast for business. And I said, well, we can figure out how to do that. So I figured it out for him. And then all of a sudden it hit me. Why don't
podcast on the afterlife?
A podcast on the afterlife. And that way I didn't have to commit to reading an entire book. I could just interview people for an hour with the best stuff.
Yeah.
So I decided to have these conversations, and I would call them through Skype and just record them and put them out on iTunes and YouTube, and I just let them go. And it was last year at this symposium where I had asked if I could promote it through my show. And they said, well, why don't you speak? Absolutely. So of the 550 participants last year, almost 90% of them were my listeners, or maybe not that high, but of this conference.
Okay.
And I was greeted by all of these people that told me such horrific stories of loss. Even it was borderline suicide. I Googled grief, and I found your show. You've changed my life. So then I got the feedback that fueled me. So now I have 275 episodes, all about the afterlife. You name it, talking to psychic mediums, talking to doctors, talking to scientists, talking to channelers, physicists, you name it, near-death experiences, hospice workers. And the conversations are so juicy about why do you believe in the afterlife. That's where we start, and I get stories. And there's no commercial breaks, and we just go for it. And then I turn it to how do you live your life knowing that we don't die. So every listener is empowered that they matter, their life matters. I believe that grief is like that pine cone that it takes that severe heat to break it open and forest fire.
Yeah,
and
it breaks us wide open
does.
so that our soul
can
feels.
grow. And I think it hurts, but it has the potential to really have us grow. And fast forward, we can always look back. Like in the moment, we don't know why we're feeling the pain, and I believe my dad is my partner on all of this, and he and my siblings and family chose to do everything that they would do so I would go on this journey. Because now looking back, and this is 8 years after Dad has passed.
No, but he's here right
Well,
now.
yes, but none of this would have been available had I not had that grief and destruction. So I am thrilled that I get to be this person, and I have such a commitment to share the afterlife, share living life, have people live their best lives ever, know they're loved, know that we're souls having a human experience. I don't think it's meant to be
not
easy.
the other way around.
I don't think it's meant to be easy, but it is really worthwhile to pursue your dreams, have a community of people engaged in this conversation. And for lack of a better term, I am living a miraculous life. So I'm grateful to be Sandra Champlain. My show is WeDon'tDieRadio.com.
I guess I didn't need to do that for her because she gets
But honest to God, everything's free. Everything's free. So there's not anything about me that's, I'm trying to sell anybody. Certainly I'd like to sell some books, but it really is to make a difference in people's lives. So that's why I'm here, and I will continue while I'm on this side on Earth and even beyond.
and even beyond.
I'm a global partner.
With her dad.
That's right. That's right.
But I will say that Spirit led us to interview the people they thought were really, I think, when we ask our Spirit team, it's about people who are living from a place of love. Because there's a lot of mediums in the world, and there's a lot of people doing amazing work and talking to the deceased spirits. But from a place of love, that's kind of where we're starting, and we were led to Sandra. And so I thank you for your love.
You're welcome. Thank you for what you do, because on behalf of the world, I know that you will never see or meet all the people that follow you.